All right, welcome back to the program. Now, a collection of Ontario school boards have launched lawsuits seeking $4.5 billion in damages against Snapchat, TikTok, and Meta, the owner of both Facebook and Instagram, for creating products that they allege negligently interfere with student learning and have caused, quote, widespread disruption to the education system. The lawsuit alleges that the social media products have been purposefully designed for compulsive use, and they have rewired the brain of children and changed the way children think, behave, and learn, leaving educators in schools to manage the fallout. Again, that quote from the lawsuit. The topic is getting more and more attention with a recent call from one of the world's top psychologists, social psychologist, Jonathan Haidt, to get children off smartphones and social media as soon as possible. Now let's get the perspective from this neck of the woods. Catherine Hogan is with us, a high school teacher at Westwood Senior High in Hudson. Hi, Catherine.
Good morning, Elias.
And we're also joined by a lawyer who happens to be your brother-in-law as well, Catherine. David Fraser's on the line, internet privacy lawyer at McInnes Cooper. Hi, David.
Hello, how are you?
I'm doing great, and I'm so happy that we got both of you on here together because I want the perspective from the classroom and I want the legal perspective here. First things first, Catherine, I'll start with you. Your reaction to what Ontario school boards did yesterday?
So, of course, I was very intrigued by this story, both positively and negatively, because indeed I think that social media platforms have rewired students and have made significant changes in the classroom. I think we need to look at the fact that this is the first generation born into social media from the minute they emerged. Their photos were posted, liked, and commented on. We know that these algorithms used by social media platforms are addictive, and we know that the likes and comments and filters have led to mental health issues in our students. So in the classroom, we couple that with COVID, and we have now unsocialized, fragile, and vulnerable teens who are beginning to tax our system of support. So on one side, I can see why the school boards are looking for ways to take money back from the social media giants and put it back into the schools to increase support where it's now needed as a result of these social media platforms. But can they prove the social media companies responsible? That's where I'm going to divert to David, because it's going to be, I think, difficult to show their responsibility. Although as a teacher and in the classroom, I absolutely see the repercussions. And I think that they're correct in saying that the social media platforms have affected the wiring of the brains and have affected the way that the students concentrate, think, and function in the classroom.
So, David, to what Catherine just said, we've had whistleblowers, right, that have come out and they've said internally they've released documents and let us know that these social media companies did in fact know the harm that their products were causing. So, I wonder if knowing that there have been whistleblowers, does that answer part of the question that Catherine just brought up?
I'm not sure if it presents a full answer. There is some conflicting evidence in social sciences research about the effect of social media on kids and things like that. And there's also the fact that the research that it was done, at least within one social media company, with respect to the impact of kids, was as part of an effort in order to understand the impact on kids and to try to mitigate some of that harm. I think we're in an environment of really heightened. You could almost characterize it as techno-panic. We've seen efforts in the United States to ban TikTok. The province of British Columbia just introduced legislation to allow the province to sue social media companies like tobacco companies. I think in some ways they're being seen as a really, really, really deep pocket full of lots of money that they can go after to try to deal with a number of issues that are present in the education system and otherwise. But from a legal point of view, this is going to be a hard slog for them in a number of ways. I think Catherine alluded to the question of causation. Can you draw a direct line between the activities of the social media companies and the harms and the experience that the school boards are complaining of? And also, do the school boards properly have standing to bring a claim against social media companies, essentially on behalf of the students? Did the social media companies owe what the lawyers would say, a duty of care to the school boards? It's easier to say that they owe a duty of care to their users and the people who are a little bit more proximate, but we're seeing kind of rippling out potential liability, and where does that end?
Catherine, one of the things that has gone through my mind, not just yesterday when this story broke out, but over the last few years, is because I've heard the stories about what's happening in the classroom. And I've said to myself jokingly, if only there was some body that could actually ban students from using their phones between 8 a.m. and 4 p.m. If only there was some body. And that leads me to the school board. So I find it, to me, part of me says, well, geez, that's rich of the school boards to sue these social media companies. Couldn't they enact the ban themselves? Couldn't the schools be doing this themselves? Shouldn't some of the blame be going on the education side of things?
Sure, absolutely. But you have to remember, Elias, that the effects of social media are not only present in students between 8 a.m. and 3 p.m., the effects of it carry on throughout the rest of their day, throughout the rest of their night. They're ongoing. So even if we ban phones in the classroom between 8 a.m. and 3 p.m., they're still using them on their own time. They're still being subjected to the same algorithms that are pulling them back in, and the same pressures of things like those filters that make the kids look different and so forth. They're still pulled into all of these things. They're still Snapchatting each other late into the night. They're still cyberbullying. These things don't exist just during the day, but the repercussions of these actions follow us into the classroom the following day and the following week.
David, you had brought up, lawsuits against tobacco companies from provinces and states in the past, and many of those lawsuits have been successful. I wonder, in your mind, the differences between going after a tobacco company versus going after social media companies.
Yeah, so I think that there are a couple important differences. One, in the lawsuits against the tobacco companies, at least the ones that took place in Canada, those were based on statutes that the provinces passed themselves in order to make it possible and in order to facilitate them doing that. So the provinces get to make the law, and the provinces get to change the law, and then they get to use that law in order to go after what they see as the harm. I think there's a much more of a direct line between tobacco promotion, tobacco use, and health effects. And where the province is the direct payer of those, it's easier to make that link. But in this case, as I mentioned earlier, we're looking at trying to, or at least the school boards are trying to draw a direct line of responsibility and liability between the social media platforms and the school boards, kind of skipping over the kids, but using the effect on the kids as the rationale for their claim. And there is conflicting social sciences evidence with respect to the direct effect of social media use. And there's also, I've seen, this is a relatively new claim. It was just announced, I guess, yesterday or the day before. And so it's only just being digested by the people who think deep thoughts about these sorts of things. But certainly I've seen people suggest, well, as you alluded to, but banning phones in schools, but also maybe the school boards have actually failed with respect to devoting enough time and attention to digital literacy skills. Mm-hmm. And also part of my immediate reaction was I remember teachers being freaked out and administrators being freaked out when yo-yos were all the rage in the playground, and was so distracting.
But that's really it, cool. David, right? I mean, like if we couldn't handle yo-yos, what chance do we have against Snapchat and TikTok? I got to wrap up here, but Catherine, I want to have you touch on one thing. On the text line, here's what I'm hearing from listeners right now is, what about the parents? What about parents' responsibility? And Catherine, you brought up the word that you used that's still sticking in my head right now. You talked about these children. You said their fragility or they're fragile.
Yeah.
Like we need the school system and parents need to be producing resilient children, not fragile children. So where's the blame there on the parent side?
I think it's both. I think we have to both take our responsibility. I think teachers are there to support parents. We're not there to do their job for them. I think that it has to be a team effort for us to address this both in the classroom and at home. And we can see the difference in our classroom with kids that have been talked to about these things and socialized about the issues of social media and the repercussions at home. And then we see the ones that are sort of left to their own devices. So yes, absolutely. I think we both play a part in helping our kids navigate this new world.
Catherine and David, sounds like you rehearsed, and you guys were fantastic. I really appreciate the tag team operation here. Great time talking to both of you.
Thanks, Elias.
Anytime.
Catherine Hogan, high school teacher at Westwood Senior High in Hudson, and David Fraser is an internet privacy lawyer at McInnes Cooper.